Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm really excited for the guests that I have on today. We're going to talk about a lot of deep emotions and relationships with our parents. He and I are going to get into that conversation, especially his with his dad. But we're going to talk about his book and all this stuff. I'm really excited for this guy because he's really genuine and he's a runner like me. So I'm excited to kind of dive into his history and all that. But I'm pleased to welcome my good friend Travis Macy to Dad Up. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, Bryan, thanks, man. It's awesome to be here. I've enjoyed listening to some of your podcast episodes and just honored to share this time with you and your audience.
Thank you very much for that, man. I was looking forward to this and, just kind of doing my own little research on you. Just seeing, oh my gosh, he's into running. He's been an ultra marathoner and all this stuff. I mean, I'm like, every time I meet another runner, it's weird that runners have like their own little community, right? I see runners out on the street. We always wave and all that stuff. But I just get giddy when I talk to another runner. So I'm excited to dive in. But for my listeners who may not know who you are, a little bit of backstory about you, kind of how you grew up, the things that you've been doing, what you're doing now. And then Obviously this is a dad podcast. So I want to talk about your kids and also your relationship with your parents.
Yeah. Well, I'm a father of two. Wyatt is 12, Lila's 10, husband to my wonderful wife, Amy. And when I'm not, spending time with my family and doing the day-to-day of driving around, we're at the soccer phase of life. A lot of your listeners may know that. I grew up playing soccer and I love it. I'm a huge fan of team sports. And I'm also realizing it can kind of take over your life, but it's all good. I like the windshield time. I like watching my kids play, and I like the community as well. So anyway, on the work side, I'm an athlete, author, speaker, coach, and podcaster. I live in a small town called Salida, Colorado. That's a fairly rural town in the mountains here in the Arkansas Valley in Colorado. Awesome place. I try not to tell people about it because it's kind of a little slice of heaven. And I've kind of been a Colorado mountain boy my whole life. I grew up in a different small town called Evergreen. At that time as a kid and teenager, watched my dad doing, like you mentioned, ultra runs and also adventure races and snowshoe races, all that kind of stuff. And I grew up playing team sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, but kind of gravitated towards running. Realized I was better at running than I was at the other sports, and had watched my dad do that stuff as a kid. Left a mark in me. When I was 5 years old, I went to the Leadville 100 for the first time and saw Ken Kluber, the legendary cowboy miner race director. He's up there and he's saying things like, you're better than you think you are. You can do more than you think you can. He's talking about grits, guts, and determination. That stuff stuck with me, even as a little kid. And I kind of knew from the start, at some point, I'm going to explore this ultra running stuff, this adventure racing stuff, long distance mountain bike racing, ski mountaineering, snowshoeing, pack burro racing, these fun fringe sports. And lo and behold, it's ended up taking me around the world and a lot of great experiences for me and my family, with teammates, with friends, and a lot of them with my dad as well, who in addition to his career as an attorney and his very involved life as a father, he stayed doing that stuff as well. So it's been a cool thing for us to share together over the years.
Oh man, that's awesome. So you have been all over the place running. Let me ask you this. How young were you when you completed your first, let's just say, marathon?
The first, I've only done one road marathon actually, and that was really? Right after I graduated high school. I did the Steamboat Marathon, and who knows, maybe I'll do more. My dad did the Ironman in 1986, and he and I were really lucky to interview triathlon legend Mark Allen for our podcast. So I've kind of always thought maybe I'll do the Ironman sometime, but honestly, I don't really like running on pavement. I'm lucky to live in the mountains, and there's great trails and off trails, ridge lines and drainages, all kinds of stuff. I don't get on the roads very much. So yeah, I did that when I was 18, and then maybe the next summer I paced, and pacing means like in the ultra world, especially 100-mile runs. Often later in the race, the racer can have a friend kind of come along and talk and keep the pace, or just help the person think clearly, make sure they eat and drink, and change clothes when they need to, all that kind of stuff. So I was able to do 50 miles at the Leadville 100 with my uncle Eric Pence when I was probably 19 then, I guess, and then kind of from there I pretty quickly got into 24-hour adventure racing, multi-day adventure racing, 24-hour mountain bike racing, mountain bike stage racing, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, I got another question for you, and we're going to dive into all this other stuff, but I got to get these running questions out of the way because I'm just, like I said, I'm giddy at this.
Yeah.
Farthest distance you've run. I know we talked off air. We talked about our good friend Dean Karnazes and the insane mileage that he has ran. But how far have you run at one maybe race?
Well, so these I've done a lot of adventure racing, and for those who don't know, that's typically a co-ed team of 4 people. You're trekking, mountain biking, paddling, navigating, sailing, riding horses, all kinds of weird stuff. I think that distance wise, the longest race we've done for that was they said it was 1,000 kilometers. So that's about 600 miles. And I don't know how much of that would have been on foot, maybe 200 or something like that. Some of the running stage races, I think came out to maybe 250 or 300 kilometers over the course of 4 or 5 days. But for me, the longest, just for a simple running race, it would have been 100 miles. And people run farther. The 200-mile races are becoming more and more popular. For most people, that becomes a lot more of a multi-day trek kind of thing than a simple straightforward run. But I mean, 100 miles is a long way to run. That's I've never talked to anyone who finished running 100 miles and felt like doing more.
Well, I've heard Dean in some of his stories, and he's talked about going to these 50-mile races or these 100-mile races, and he's talked about one race that he went to in particular. It was like 50 miles away from his house, and so he decided to run there, and then ran the 50-mile race, and then ran home.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it boggles my mind that, I've completed marathons, that's fine. But going, another, marathon, doing 50 miles is just, it's a lot. And it's a lot on your body too. And the amount of training that you have to do, the nourishment that your body needs, all those things are critical in, being able to accomplish such a task. So I applaud you in the stuff that you've done.
Yeah.
And I want to get into a little bit more of it because you have 2 kids. Are they runners? You talk about soccer. I have 2 boys, 24 and 21. And they ran, when I would go and run marathons or maybe a 10K or something like that, they'd always have these little kid races where they're like 1 mile or 2 miles.
Yeah.
So my boys have done that when they were younger. When they got into their teenage years, they had no interest in doing it anymore. And they grew up, they love playing basketball. That's kind of their sport. So that was what they gravitated to. So how about your kids? Are they into running?
A bit. I'm a big fan of kids having fun and kids doing a lot of different stuff as long as they can, whether that's multiple sports or, maybe some official sports or some things unofficial around here. All the kids like skiing. So I try to take them skiing as much as they can. And same thing with mountain biking. We have awesome dry trails that you can ride year round. So I try to encourage that interest, but also let them lead the way. So they've definitely done, running races, 5Ks, 10Ks. They have actually Father's Day weekend, we have this awesome festival here in Salida called Fibark, and it's got this race called the Tenderfoot Hill Climb. I'm looking out my window here, Bryan. I can see Tenderfoot Mountain. It's about a 500 vertical foot gain, so that's not a huge mountain, but it's a mountain, and it's steep and it's rocky, and they have this race that starts on Main Street, and you run like a quarter mile down Main Street and then go straight up and down this mountain off trail. Choose your own route, choose your own adventure. And in the winners, man, are doing this thing. It comes out to about a mile, but you got 500 feet of gain, 500 feet of loss. The winners are doing this thing in under 10 minutes, which is pretty amazing. But what's awesome here in Salida is a lot of the kids do it. So the whole front row of athletes in this race are kids, and all the boys have shirts off, and the girls are just wearing their sports bras, and man, they're out for blood. So yeah, my kids have done that. They've done 5Ks and 10Ks on the trail. They've paced me or my dad and aunts, uncles, whatever at races. So they kind of like it, but I figure if they get into it sometime, if they want to run in high school or whatever, they can. And if not, the good thing about sports like running and cycling, you can get into it anytime. It's pretty hard to pick up, like you said, soccer or basketball. If you're a junior in high school and you say, I want to start playing basketball, well, if you haven't played with the folks your age for the last 5 years, there's no way you can make that jump, but you can with running.
Yeah. And running is, it can be an expensive sport, but it doesn't have to be for somebody that's, maybe just an average dad or mom that wants to get out and exercise. Get yourself a nice pair of shoes, supported shoes, maybe $150, $200.
Yep.
And they can last you, 300-400 miles and just get outside and run. So it's fairly inexpensive, but I'll tell you a funny story real fast. Everybody's like, I thought this was a dad podcast and we're talking about running. But honestly, this was related to being a dad. I had, there's a race here called the Mount Baldy Run, and it's an 8-mile run. And it's up a mountain, and the mountain is 10,000 feet elevation. So when you get to the top, you're at 10,000 feet, and it's 4 miles up and then 8 miles up, and then you got to go 8 miles back down. Right. So it's a long trek, but it is, you have to do it. I think the cutoff is you got to get to the top in 3 hours. And I did it with my older son. At the time, I think he was about 11, maybe 12. And he and I did it, and we got in at like 2 hours and 48 minutes or something like that. We made it. But when we got to the top, we had somebody take a picture of us and all this stuff, and you're standing there. And I met this older guy there, and he was in his 70s, and he was already up there. He had beat us already up there. He's in his 70s doing it. And so we got a picture with him and stuff. So it was really cool. But it was a great father-son moment for us to be able to do that. And it was treacherous, boy. Let me tell you, they had ridgeback trails all the way up, just these zigzag trail. I mean, it was just insane, and it was steep. And my son said he will never do that again.
Yeah. Well, good for you guys, Bryan. And I tell you what, my opinion as far as how does endurance running connect to fatherhood, I think there's a huge value in kids seeing their parents and seeing other adults, whether it's moms or dads, grandmas, grandfathers, anyone, doing hard things and doing things that involve uncertainty, basically towing the line and throwing it out there. And, maybe you're a dad, you're listening to this, whether you finish the race, whether you win it, whether you finish last, whether you don't finish, having your kids see you do all those things and having them see you put in the process, the training, the preparation, the dedication, that's huge. And again, it doesn't matter if your kid, likes running or doesn't like running. It's just that they see you going through that. I think there's a huge value.
Yeah, absolutely. My boys, when I trained for my first marathon, I hired a running coach. I got part of a running group, and we trained for it as a running group. My kids saw me, getting up early in the morning to go on these training runs. And when I completed my first marathon, it was the Long Beach Marathon here in California. And when I completed it, my wife and two boys were there. They're holding up the signs that my sons made, you know, watching me cross the finish line. It's just a great feeling to have
Yeah.
my family witness me and see me do those things. And like you said, it's lessons for your kids that they pick up on.
Yeah.
You put your body through this, you know, this, I guess you could say torture, but you put your body through all this work to accomplish something that you want to accomplish, and to have your kids witness that is just a great lesson for them. So that's awesome. Okay. We're sort of done with running, sort of.
Yeah. All right.
because I do want to talk about, you know, your relationship with your dad and the struggles that he's going through right now.
Yep.
You guys have, and I know I'm going to mess this up, but you guys together completed, what was the name of that race that you guys completed again? Because it's kind of a long race, the world.
Yeah, so relatively recently, I mean, I guess the race happened in 2019. But yeah, people may have heard, go to Amazon Prime, World's Toughest Race Eco Challenge Fiji, is the race that we did together. We competed in it. I won't give away the ending in case people haven't seen it. Watch it on there. We have a book coming out called A Mile at a Time where we kind of talk about it. But yeah, I mean, you know, in addition to just a great father-son relationship as far as being, you know, friends and adventure companions, and, you know, dad, you know, for my whole life was kind of the person I went to for advice, you know, whether that's financial advice, career advice, you know, just mentorship. He was, and he is even now. He has Alzheimer's. He was diagnosed in 2018. So our communications and our roles are different. But I tell you what, Bryan, he very much still continues to teach me, through example, you know, by showing me that it's never too late to help other people. It's never too late to continue living fully, even as that changes and looks a lot different maybe than it did 10 years ago or 5 years ago or even 2 months ago, but to continue to find happiness and make the most of things.
No, that's cool.
You know, he continues to show me that. And my mom as well, you know, she's the primary caretaker at this point as dad's Alzheimer's advances. And they inspire me, man.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the race itself, and then we'll get into more of the impact that Alzheimer's is having on not only him, but you guys and your kids for that matter.
Yeah.
But the race, what does it entail? Can you give us a little bit of a kind of a synopsis?
Yeah. So adventure racing in a nutshell, again, you're looking at a nonstop race, you know, in this case, probably something like 5 to 10 days round the clock racing. You're trekking, you're mountain biking, you're paddling, stand-up paddleboard, sailing, the Thamacow, this traditional Fijian outrigger sailing boat. This is like literally the same boat that people colonized islands in the Pacific Ocean with, you know, thousands of years ago. And here we are, you know, 4 people from Colorado on this thing trying to figure out how to do it. And then you're navigating with map and compass. So, you know, no GPS watch, no cell phone, no tech, which is a huge part of the race and makes it really fun and dynamic, on an unknown course. You know, the course is not marked. You go do your marathon or your triathlon or whatever, like, you know, the distance and the course ahead of time. You know, we roughly knew what sports we were going to do, but you don't know the distance, you don't know the order, you don't know anything. And in fact, when the gun goes off at the start of the race, you don't even know the whole course. You've gotten the maps for maybe the first fifth of the course, and you got to make it through that to a cutoff time, you know, for that first section of the course. And if you make that, then they give you the next maps and you get to keep going. So, whereas in the past, you know, my teammates and I may have been racing for the podium or, you know, trying to be competitive, you know, this time we're fighting the cutoffs, man. And we're back with many of the teams in the race are fighting these cutoffs, and it's cool. It's just as competitive back there, you know, trying to survive and make it through. And it was quite dynamic with, we had a team of four, plus this unknown fifth teammate called Alzheimer's. And, honestly, Bryan, we had no idea what the hell was going to happen out there. We knew that there would be challenges. We knew there would be disorientation. We knew that Dad's, visual, spatial, limitations would make it especially hard at night for him to see, whether you're running or biking with a headlamp and just, continuing to move forward. So we were up against a lot, but we approached it with an open mind, and we focused on having fun and trying to stay ahead of the cutoffs. We focused on sleeping. A lot of teams, if people have seen this kind of stuff on TV, whether it's this race or the Eco Challenge back in the 90s and early 2000s, sleep deprivation is a huge challenge. And we realized, like, man, we got to sleep, 6, 7, 8 hours every night. We need to stop and find a good, dry, warm place, which usually was the house of rural Fijians, who are the most, cool. Generous and enthusiastic people I've ever met. And, we kind of took it as I said, a mile at a time, figuring things out as we went.
Oh, that's cool. So A Mile at a Time, that book's going to come out when this show airs. That book will come out in a couple days. So make sure you guys are picking up that book, because I've already pre-ordered it. I'm looking forward to diving into it. But were there times during that race, because we're talking about our parents going through what you has said, your dad's going through Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Was there a moment in that race? Maybe there were multiple, maybe there were none. I don't know. That's what I'm asking you for. Was there a moment in that race that you said, okay, we're probably not going to be able to finish because this is happening right now? Was there any time in that race that occurred because of the disease?
There were many moments of uncertainty where, more or less I thought to myself, like, this could be it. And I lay those out in the book. This Alzheimer's thing, Bryan, it's been probably the hardest and the saddest thing I've ever gone through. It's also forced more growth than anything else. And, here I was going along, mid-30s, got a job, house, kids, whatever, and I'm an adult, right? And then all of a sudden, here this comes, Dad's 64, and he's diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And I realized within a few months, I've got to grow up and be a true adult like I never have been before. And as it turned out during that race, for me, it kind of became a rite of passage, whereby I was able to become more comfortable with, like I said, a different role. You've spent your whole life with your dad. You've established these roles, right? These father-son roles, which are great. Everyone needs a father. And, it's been, one of the best relationships of my life. But I realized I've got to, act differently and be ready more to take the lead. And I think it also helped Dad realize, how can you be a grown man and accept help? And that's a hard step for a lot of people. And I tell you what, man, he's taken on that role and grown into it. And it's been amazing. So yeah, we definitely had a few moments. I mean, I talk in the book about one night where Dad became extremely disoriented and didn't know where we were, what we were doing. He's a laid back, fun, easygoing, laughing guy. And this anger came up, based on, where the hell are we? What's going on? And fear as well. And I realized, that particular night, Bryan, it was like, all right, either we go to sleep now and the brain resets and things are good, or at least better in the morning, or we're done. We're out here for fun and, the journey and all that. And if it's creating a situation where someone is scared and disoriented and not having fun anymore, then we're done. So thankfully we fell asleep. We crawled into this schoolhouse out there in the middle of nowhere in the mountains in Fiji, and we laid down this brick building. It had that orange carpet, that they put on in gyms, like our elementary school gyms when we were kids. It had that same carpet, man. It's all over the world. It's that stuff on top of concrete. And we laid down there, with our heads on top of our life jackets, and I was holding Dad's hand to give him that love, and also I knew I was going to fall asleep, and okay, it's not going to be good here if Dad wakes up and wanders away and doesn't know where he is. So we fell asleep holding hands, and man, we woke up 6 hours later and things were better. He knew awesome. Where we were. He knew what was going on. He wasn't mad at me for not paying the entry fee for the race, and all this other crazy shit. And off we went.
That's cool. Well, I'm glad that worked out for you. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit, not so much about the race, but more about, you've talked about your relationship with your dad and what a great relationship you guys have had. The impact of Alzheimer's and I guess you could say the downward slide in which your dad's going through right now, where it's progressing. What kind of an impact has that had on your kids? Because they're close to their grandparents, and I can imagine that there's probably been some confusion on their part as well, to experience this. For maybe parents that are experiencing this themselves, what impact or what advice can you give to parents that may be going through something similar with their own kids and having to talk to them and reassure them?
Yeah. Bryan, that's a good question, man. It's, one of the most dynamic things I've ever faced. And I tell you what, at the start, maybe the first, and I think this may be a fairly common experience for the child of someone who's diagnosed, with cognitive decline or Alzheimer's, or, it's something a diagnosis that you don't want to get. Those first months were the hardest for me, and my own anxiety, depression, panic attacks, were so significant that literally it took me months, Bryan, before I could talk to my kids about Alzheimer's, without completely losing it. And that's, I'm fine with my kids seeing me cry and show emotion. I think that's all totally fine, but lose it to the point where they would have been scared or uncertain or whatever, and at that time, let's see, they were 5 and 7, so they were they were still young kids, and there's now at 10 and 12 they're still kids, but it's a different phase where they have more of a level of understanding. So I think it's got to be, whatever you talk about, it's developmentally appropriate for the child of that age, for their personality. And it's just, it's like talking to your child about, sexuality or something. Like it's not one talk that occurs at one time, the birds and the bees. It's an ongoing conversation. And for them, now at 10 and 12, we still spend a lot of time with Nana and Grandpa. And so they can see very much up close, how's Grandpa doing? And also, what does he need help with? And we've just tried to make it seamless and natural. Like, man, if Grandpa can't find where the door is or where to sit down for dinner or which plate is his, guys, we just help him. Like, it's just, that's what you do. Like, we're a team and we help each other. Yes, the loss is sad, and I continue to have, moments of downtime, of anxiety about future hypotheticals, all that kind of stuff. But I've really decided, like, man, 90% of my energy and effort is the here and now. What is good now? What is the best thing now? Where is the happiness and the positivity and the love now, today? And that's, mostly just through setting that example. That's what the kids focus on as well. We're not in a place, if all you do is constant comparison, how does now compare to 2 years ago? How does now compare to last month or whatever? the
You're going to
comparison,
drive yourself crazy.
yeah, you're going to drive yourself crazy, and it's probably not going to lead to happiness or contentment. But if you focus on where are we at now, what's the good, where's the happiness, how can we connect with grandpa, what's going to be fun, what's going to be appropriate now, there's still a lot of goodness, and we have a book thing coming up in April in New York City. And, now as of today, like, could my dad get on a plane on his own or travel to New York? I mean, no way in the world. But if my mom's there and I'm there and my wife and my kids, and we can, hold his hand in the airport and support each other and, find a good balance of, how much does grandpa kind of stay in the rental apartment, and maybe the kids are psyched for New York because they can go, I mean, they're not going to go explore on their own, but we're going to go do a lot of stuff. Some of that might be too much for grandpa, but to go up in front of a group of people and talk for, a few minutes with me at his side, and I can help him, if he can't find the words or whatever, that's fine. And that's all good. It's all now. And that's something, again, back to what does dad keep teaching me? I tell you what, with cognitive decline, Bryan, I mean, you don't know what the hell is going to happen tomorrow or what happened yesterday or, whatever, but what do you have here and now? So, well, let's make the most of it. What is the best thing right now?
That's so good. That's so good. That's life, right? The here and now, that's
is.
life.
Yeah.
There's 2 days. I've heard it said there are 2 days every year that you can't do anything about. And that's yesterday and tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
You can only do what's happening today. So, that's so good that you have that, and that you understand that, and especially that your kids understand that. Hey, what can we do now to help grandpa? What can we do? And the fact that you've had these conversations, and you're right. You talked about it. These are conversations that you have to have constantly with them as he declines. That's going to have to be a natural part of existence for you guys now as a family. That's so good. I want to ask you this: when it comes to maybe the struggles with your kids, have you witnessed any struggles that they've faced in kind of going through this journey with their grandfather? Have you seen any struggles that you had to help them through?
I mean, yes, there is the sadness or the questioning or whatever, but it also like you don't always share everything with kids, especially young children. I mean, I think back to, so when I was 7 years old, my mom was going to die if she didn't get a liver transplant, and she got one, and it saved her life. And at the time, did I know that? The doctors, the medical team advised my parents, like, you might want to tell your kids that, that Pam might die here in this operation. And I'm glad that my parents didn't listen to that advice, because they took it in stride. The example that they set was, okay, mom needs a new liver. She's going to be at the hospital for a couple weeks, and, we'll do it. And the fact that they took it in stride and were able to, display that confidence, I think, my sister and I kind of took it in stride. So that's what we're doing. And again, I don't think you don't hide emotions from your kids, and you don't, it's okay for them to know that something's hard for you or that you're struggling. That's really important. But I think it's also just as important that they see, like, hey guys, we're navigating this, okay, well, whatever, we're all going to go walk downtown and get some sandwiches, and, grandpa's not going to know where the hell we are, and he can't read the menu or whatever, but that's fine. Like, you just do it, and then it becomes normal. And they also see, like, okay, here's someone who has very significant limitations, but that doesn't mean they're not a person. That doesn't mean they don't love you. That doesn't mean they can't keep going and doing, things together. We're all, dad loves these races in Leadville, Colorado, the 100-mile run, the 100-mile mountain bike, all that kind of stuff. And like 2 years ago, dad and I did the 50-mile run together, or at least started it. We did most of it. We made it 32 miles, and then we hit the time cutoff. And then last year, he and I did the half marathon together, which is a big challenge. You start at 10,000 feet, you run up to 13,000 feet, and then you come back down to Leadville. And that was a good fit at that time. And this year, we're going to do the 10K. We're all signed up to to do it together. And so the kids see that progression, and they know that this, I mean, now like they could both run 10K on a road in Leadville way faster than grandpa could, but that's fine. They know that, hey, grandpa can still make it, and we're going to do it together. So you take it step by step. And also with cognitive decline, whether it's Alzheimer's or something else, I mean, we've all had to embrace uncertainty and a lack of control, because you have no idea what's going to happen and when is it going to happen. Things could stay steady for the next year or 3 years or 5 years. Things could change pretty drastically in the next 2 months. We don't know. You got to be open to it, and you have to realize that, boy, we sure all like to be a lot in control in life. And, things like the pandemic teach us, well, life happens, you got to deal with it and make the most of it when it does happen.
Yeah. I think those conversations that we have with our kids are important. And it reminds me of, my wife, when she was in her 30s, she experienced a heart attack. And
Wow.
it was an instance where we were at the movies with some family members. My kids weren't there. It was just adults. It was like 6 of us there. And my wife got sick. She started feeling ill, and I could feel her hand. It was kind of, clammy. And she said, I have to get some air. So she walked out. I let her go. She walked out, and she was gone for a little while. And I went to go look for her, and she was laying down on this bench out in the lobby.
Wow.
And I went, what are you doing? And she said, I can't sit up. If I sit up, I'm going to be really sick. I have to lay down. So we were going to call, my sister-in-law called the management over. They called paramedics, and they showed up, and they said, well, we're not quite sure what's going on, but we're gonna have to take you to the hospital. And my wife refused. She said, no, I'm actually feeling better. I'm good. We drove home, and she said, I'm not feeling well again. And I said, okay, I'm taking you to the emergency room. That's it. We're going to the emergency room. And she was in the emergency room, and they said, we got to have somebody come in. We want to keep you overnight, have somebody come in the next day to take a look at you. And it turns out she had a mild heart attack.
Wow.
And she had to have 5 stents put in. And it was a scary time, because she was, in the hospital, and they were getting ready to do the surgery. And I had to take my boys and sit down with them, because they didn't understand what was going on. They were a lot younger at the time.
Yeah.
And I had to sit down with them at lunch and just kind of talk to them about it and say, hey, this is what's going on. Everything's going to be okay. Your mom's going to be fine, but she has to have this procedure done in order to survive. It's plain and simple. She has to have this done. And my boys were upset, crying, sadness, all the emotions that you can experience in that time came over them. But we realized as a family that, hey, our family unit is strong, and now we have to be stronger for each other and for your mom. And my boys stepped up, man. They came alive, and just like, we'll do what we have to do. And so we were able to function through that. And it was those conversations that, that was a tough conversation for me to sit down with them. I took them out to a restaurant, and we sat down at lunch, and I had to talk to them about it. So those are important conversations to have with your kids. If, parents that are listening to this or watching, if you're experiencing some sort of traumatic experience or situation in your life, whether it's a family member or you yourself, it's okay to have those conversations with your kids, because they're confused. They don't understand. And to have these conversations with them in a loving way, and at age appropriate conversation to where they can understand it. And reassurance is what they need. The fact that you guys stepped up and your kids are recognizing that is a testament to the kind of dad that you are, and the kind of father that you had that raised the dad that you are. So that's awesome.
Thanks, man. Thanks for sharing that story. That's really powerful.
Thank you.
And good job to you. And and just for kids to know that whatever's going on, it's not their fault. Right. Sometimes I think kids have a greater capacity for resilience and creativity and even leadership, than we may give them credit for. And sometimes, when they're put in that role, they can rise,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When we're talking about fathering now, being a dad to your kids, what lessons did you take from your own parents that taught you, how to be a dad? So
Yeah.
from being in the relationship that you had with your parents, you have a very close relationship with your mom and dad. What parenting lessons did you learn from them?
Yeah, I mean, when you were saying that before, Brian, I thought, well, I was lucky to learn from the best. I mean, they just, my parents always made it very clear that family and the team come first, and I talked about, okay, dad was out, he was a lawyer, he worked really hard. He was working hard at his athletics and racing and stuff, but he still family came first, and he was always there at all the games and school stuff and that kind of stuff. I think it's less of often less of what our parents say to us and what do we say as parents, and more just the example. So keep showing up. It sounds like kind of a cliche, but that's probably what it comes down to first and foremost. And then this is a bit related, but kind of different. I do want to mention, Brian, for those, if there are any dads out there who have realized that they are now in a family that's different than what they grew up in, that can be hard. And what that means for me. So my parents were both very, incredibly loving, still always are. When I was a kid, my parents had traditional roles. Dad went to work. Mom did not go to work, and she did everything else, all the logistics, the kid stuff, the driving, everything. And that, again, here we are in the 80s, that was pretty typical. My family now is much different in that my wife and I both work. We're both self-employed and have, the joys of a flexible schedule, but also the demands of work never leaves. And, it's kind of just always there. And again, we both work. And when our kids were young, just kind of because of the way things worked out, I was working from home with a more flexible schedule, and my wife was still working at a, more traditional brick and mortar job, leaving the house to go to work during the day. That wasn't something I didn't have an example for that growing up. And I just want to say it in case there's other dads out there who are in that situation, either by choice or just kind of, because it's how how the dice rolled. It was both great for me and it was really hard for me, because I often found myself, at places with two little kids. Let's say, I'm at the park, whatever, before the kids were in school, or maybe when, they're in preschool, kindergarten, you got some time to kill before dinner and you go to the park. Well, it was me and my kids and a whole bunch of other kids and a bunch of moms.
Right.
And, these are great people and they're friends in the community. And we'd chat and stuff, but it's still, it's like, oh man, I'm looking around like, geez, I'm the only dad here. And that, it was hard for me. And I definitely had to do a lot of mental gymnastics of, again, what is my identity? How do I contribute as a father? Because, again, the model I grew up in is, not only is dad, he's the dad who comes to all your stuff, but like dad is the one earning money. And here we are in a different situation where, both parents are earning money and navigating, kind of this crazy balance and stuff. So anyway, the point is, I don't know, I guess I'm just throwing a line out. If there's dads out there going through the same thing, it's okay. It's okay for it to feel like a challenge, and you can figure it out. Here I am, kids are 10 and 12. They're kind of at that tween stage now. They're more, this stage for me has been a lot more seamless. Like, the kids spend their time at school. I have more time to work and do my own thing as an athlete. And the time that we spend together, as dad with kids, we're doing stuff. We're skiing or biking or, camping, whatever. And for me, that's been easier than taking care of young kids at home.
Yeah. It's the same for us too. My wife, she's a school teacher still to this day. She's a school teacher. And, we were fortunate enough where my boys and all my nieces and nephews went to the school that she teaches at all the way up through junior high. So
yeah.
she was always around our boys. And then I coached. And so I coached my boys from the age of 4 all the way up through high school. So they would, be with mom during the day. And then in the evening time, they were typically with me because I was the coach of the teams that they were playing on. So
Yeah.
we kind of had these shared roles in spending time with our kids. My wife being their teacher and then me being their coach. My wife and I were just talking about this morning. It's so funny because we were talking about how our boys are fortunate enough to where they have really been around their mom and dad their entire lives. I mean,
Yeah.
like all the
Yeah.
time around them, whether it was at school or at
Yeah.
sports. Sometimes, that wasn't a good thing. Sometimes we had our moments, but for the most part, they were always around us and they were fortunate enough for that. And there's not a lot of families today that have that ability. And
Yeah.
I try to encourage parents, when you don't have the ability like I had or like Travis had with his kids, make the most of the moments that you do have because time goes by.
Yeah.
My boys are 24 and 21, and I can remember like it was yesterday when they started high school. And now, my
Yeah.
older son's out of college, my younger son's a junior in college. It goes by so fast. So if you don't have the ability to spend a lot of time with your kids because of work, because of other commitments, I understand that. But also understand that when you are with your kids, be with your kids.
Yeah.
You had mentioned it, be present, right? So
Yeah.
be present with your kids and make the most of it. So good. So cool. We could talk for probably another couple hours on just
Easy.
parenting and
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
and races and all that stuff. What's the next race you guys have coming up, you and your dad together?
Yeah, like I said, we're signed up for that 10K in Leadville in August. Leadville 10K. It's part of that same Leadville race series. This weekend, Dad's actually doing a 10K snowshoe race in Leadville.
Oh wow.
I'm taking my kids to a soccer camp in a different part of Colorado, but Mom and Dad are gonna drive up to Leadville, and her brother Eric lives there, so Dad and Uncle E are gonna do the 10K snowshoe together. And and again, it's a big challenge for him now, and he, Uncle E needs to be right with him for him to stay on the course and that kind of stuff. But I'm confident they can do it. 10
Oh, that's cool.
10K at 10,000 feet.
Oh wow, that's cool. So your book, 1 Mile at a Time. For those of you that are watching now, this episode, the book actually comes out in a couple days. It will be March 14th is the release date of the book. Where can people find the book if they want to
Yeah.
pick it up and read about your guys' journey?
Yeah, thanks, Bryan. Wherever books are sold. So, I'm a fan
Easy to.
of go to your indie bookstore and see if they have it or ask them to order it. If you're listening to this podcast, you might like audiobooks. The audiobook is coming out that same day. I'm pretty pumped about it. The production team did a really good job. I kind of added some some new commentary, if you will, in between the chapters, kind of looking back and stuff. So you can check that out. That'll be on Audible or another app called Libro.fm that you can actually choose an indie bookstore beneficiary. So wherever you get books. And Dad and I host a podcast as well. It's called the Travis Macy Show. And I think the day after this podcast comes out, we have a recording come out where the editor of our book interviewed us about the writing process and stuff. And that was actually recorded last summer. I tried to, in advance of the book coming out, Dad and I have tried to record as much as we can, just because you don't know where things are going with Alzheimer's. But I got to say he's pumped to do. We have some in-store events at bookstores and that kind of stuff. He's pumped to do those, and he'll be there. So yeah.
Awesome. That's good. It's cool that you guys are doing that together. These are memories that you're going to have forever, which are awesome. Your kids are going to have them forever, which are awesome. I had my dad on my show a
Nice.
while back, just because I wanted that memory with him. And he's 70 now. So, and he's still good. Everything's good with him, but just to have that memory that my kids will now have forever, to be able to go back and watch an episode of mine with me and their grandfather. So that's cool that you're doing that together with him. If my listeners wanted to look you up, learn a little bit more about about you, best place for them to do that?
They could start at travismacy.com/books. And you see our bios and there's videos, whatever stuff's linked on there, but there's some previews to the book in text and some excerpts from the audiobook and that kind of stuff. So they can go there. I'm on Instagram at Travis Macy, and it's not really my thing, but it's kind of part of the business. So try to keep that up as much as I can.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to put all those in the show notes. But Travis, I'm looking forward to continuing our friendship, brother. I told you before we started recording that I'm going to be leaning on you for some tips and suggestions on my running that I'm doing. But I just appreciate you being on, taking the time. I'm excited for the book. I pre-ordered the audio version. I like audiobooks myself because I'm running all the time and stuff. Yeah. I like to listen to books. So
me too.
I'm excited for it to come out and dive into it. So thank you very much again for being on the show. I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, Bryan, thanks, man. It's been awesome to be here with you and with the audience. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I'm going to keep listening to your podcast. And, as you say, the legacy starts in the home. I love it. I love your message and I love what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Listen, everybody, this has been an awesome conversation with Travis. If you guys want to pick up his book, you can pre-order it now. Anywhere you can get your books, you can pre-order it now. You can go to Amazon. I saw it on Amazon. You can do all that stuff. Do it now. Get the book. It's going to be an amazing story. It's going to share the experiences with his own dad and the race that they went through. I'm excited for this book to come out. Looking forward to it. And obviously the audible version is out there on that same day, March 14th. So make sure you guys pre-order it. Go to travismacy.com. You can check out everything there. Make sure you guys listen to his podcast, but I'm really excited for you guys to hear, not only listen to this episode, but also pick up that book. So as always, if you have not subscribed yet to my show, please do so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow. Another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at daduppodcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.